And we are ready. Okay, so thank you for joining me today, James. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Janine Pipe, usually joined by my co-host Ben, but he's off doing some family stuff today, so it's just me. I'm a writer, a reviewer, a reader, a podcaster, an editor, and just a little bit of everything. And Ken got in touch with me from Silver Shamrock and asked if I would interview as many of you guys as possible, just to give you a bit more exposure, especially when it was coming up towards the release of your new books. So that's why Ben and I started doing this. And I think you are number 8. I think we've spoken to 8 of you guys beforehand. And later on this month, we've got Gord Rollo, Brennan, and Brian Morland as well. So some excellent people that we're chatting to. So can you just introduce yourself for me, James, and just tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got started in writing?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's really cool. My name is James Newman, and I live in North Carolina, many miles away from Janine, obviously. I've been writing since, my mom says I've been making up stories since I was old enough to hold a pencil. I wrote little monster stories, even when I was in kindergarten. And I've been seriously writing since about around the year 2000 or so. Dark Tales Publications released a chapbook of mine called Holy Rollers. I had my first truly professional sale to Leisure Books in 2004. My first novel was Midnight Rain, which was a coming of age suspense thriller, and then just been rock and rolling ever since with novels such as The Wicked, Animosity, Ugly as Sin, a few collections, and novellas. I'm very comfortable in the novella format and that length. So I've done a bunch of novellas that folks tend to like, such as Odd Man Out, Olden, Ride or Die, which is the one coming out that we're going to talk about, In the Scrape, and the special with Mark Steensland. So in a nutshell, that's me.
Now, I have heard of The Wicked, and I've heard of Midnight Rain, but I haven't read them. But I didn't know that Midnight Rain was a leisure book, so that's very exciting.
Yeah, that was my very first and only mass market publisher or publication. Yeah.
Yep. Oh wow, that's very awesome. I mean, we do have them occasionally pop up in charity shops and things in thrift stores in England, but not very often. Usually when I'm trying to collect any leisure books, I normally have to go on to eBay. But I have one from when I was a teenager, Hellboard by Dana Reed, and that's my one original leisure book. The rest of them I've been trying to get over the years, but they are just a treasure in themselves.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned very briefly Ride or Die there, which is obviously your new, so that's a novella, is it? Does that come under novella? Yep. Okay. So that's your latest novella with Silver Shamrock. What can you tell us about that, obviously, without giving anything away?
Ride or Die is about 3 friends, 3 teenage girls. The main character is Amelia Fletcher, and they're pretty normal, American teenage girls. Talk about boys, talk about music, movies, social media, active. And Amelia Fletcher, the main character, discovers one night, overhears a conversation that leads her to believe, and she later confirms, that her dad is cheating on her mom. And she's obviously very upset about it. She chooses not to tell mom because it would destroy her, but she does choose to have a little fun with her friends and a night of mischief to force the other woman to stay away from dad. So they decide to go out and raise a little hell, break some shit, spray paint some shit, toilet paper some shit, and just generally scare the woman away and destroy some property. And they get much more than they bargained for when they discover that this was no ordinary affair.
Right. Okay.
That's about the point
Well,
where it
you've
starts
got
to get
me
forward.
ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds very exciting. I've got a copy coming from, or Ken normally sends me paperbacks anyway, but I've been sent a copy from Horror DNA, so you will see it reviewed
Awesome.
over there at some point as well. Yeah, and Stewie from Horror DNA sent it straight to me as well. He said, "I know you're going to want this one, so I am very excited to read it."
Great.
So that leads me again nicely on to the next question of what. Why did you choose? Because obviously, as soon as you hear teenage and whatnot, you know it's going to be coming of age and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So why did you choose that? And more importantly, why teenage girls, and how did you find writing that? I mean, I'm very comfortable writing teenage boys. It's probably my favorite characters. But how did you go about writing teenage girls?
Right. So yeah, I love the coming of age genre, but I just started thinking in the very early stages of this project that I really, maybe they're out there and I just haven't read them. I'm sure there's some great ones out there, but I just started thinking about how I haven't read many stories that were strictly from the point of view, a coming of age story of a group of girls. Um, you have girls will appear in coming of age groups such as It, but you've got one girl in a group of boys. So I was like, I want to try something different and have this be a group of girls. And sort of where you were going with that question, I know we had talked a little bit leading up to this. I know you were wondering, and I may be jumping ahead here, but was it challenging? Absolutely, it was challenging. I questioned myself every step of the way. Like, am I getting this right? Because a teenage girl, I, in no way, shape, or form do I know, how they talk when they're alone. Can't relate. I don't have a daughter. I have two sons. I have several nieces that I watched grow up, but I don't truly know how teenage girls talk when they're alone. So this one was sort of fun in that I usually keep my cards close to my chest when I'm writing a story and try not to put it out there to a bunch of people until it's done. This one was a little bit different because I did send to a pretty good group of people, probably about half a dozen female friends of mine, and asked them, and even a buddy of mine who had a teenage daughter who liked horror. I was like, hey, can you give this a read for me and tell me if I'm totally off base and there's no realism in this at all? Is it obvious that this is a guy trying to write from the point of view of a teenage girl? Does it work? And other than a few small suggestions, the consensus seemed to be that I was 99% there, that I got it. There were a couple of differing opinions. Like I've never talked to a friend of mine like that, but then I would have two or three others in that group who said they did. So if the majority opinion said, no, you've got it right, then I went with it. So overall, I just had a little help from some from friends, and a couple of female writers that gave me their opinion and said, yes or no, this is working or it's not. So that was kind of.
Yeah, that's the way that I think a lot of us do. Like I've had people, because I used to be a police officer, and I've had people send me stuff and say, would a police officer do this, say this, is this the right, lingo to use on the radio and stuff like that. So it's not quite the same as like a sensitivity reader or writer, because you're not kind of diving into somebody else's culture or heritage or something like that. But it is very different. And I think I would, even though I was obviously once a long time ago a teenage girl, I think they change. And I've got an 11-year-old daughter, but they change so much. I think I would struggle to write teen girls as well. So
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to say it holds true with just about anything. Like you mentioned, people asking you about law enforcement. It holds true with anything. Like I know nothing about guns, and I have what I call my gun guy, a guy that I used to work with on my day job. I'll come to him and be like, is this totally wrong? Or I know nothing about this at all and haven't even written this scene yet. How would this work? And it's
Yeah.
just, it's priceless to have someone who is willing to do that for you. And they usually like it because sometimes they'll get an acknowledgement in the book. It's very helpful.
Exactly. That's it. It is, yeah, and I mean that's what screenwriters and people that work in television and movies and stuff. They obviously have the experts that they call in and stuff. So, I think it's good that, and especially within our community, I can think of numerous people that I might send something to and say, like my very first werewolf story that I wrote, I sent it to another guy who's like big on werewolves, and I was like, obviously this is my spin on it, but does that transition seem about right, like with the chief coming out and kind of thing. So we use each other as well, and I think that's that's something that's really nice with like mentoring within the our community and whatnot. We have people that we can go to for that kind of advice.
Yeah, for sure, it's invaluable.
Yeah. Have you got, on the flip side of that, have you got anything that people might come to you to ask about, do you think?
Oh, wow. No, I'm pretty boring. I have no interesting skills. If anything, it would be about writing.
Yeah.
Trying to rack my brain. No, not really. Mostly just writing advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good in itself, because that's nice and general. And of course, I sent you one of my stories because I needed to know if it was right for boys putting dicks in trees. So,
Yeah.
Maybe that is your speciality.
No experience there, but I helped as much as I could.
That's been such a polarizing story. It's quite funny, really, and it's quite funny, the mix. I've had quite a few women who have read it and been like, "Oh, that was just disgusting," and then most of the men that have read it have been like, "Yeah, I love that story. It's one of my favorites."
Right.
That's Loved just the way it is. Okay, but this is about you, not about me. Right. Okay. Question number 4 is so you mentioned when we were talking about what you've written that you've done a couple of collaborations. Is it just Mark who you've collabed with, or have you done it with other people?
I've done quite a few collaborations. I've had a couple of pieces with a buddy of mine who actually lives here in my hometown, that I've been buddies with since we were like 14 or 15, Don Gash. I have Love Bites is a novella that I wrote with him. I've written, you mentioned werewolves. I have a werewolf novella called Dog Days of Summer that I wrote with Mark Allen Gunnels.
Mark, yes. Yeah. I'd never heard of that, and then I saw Mark post something the other day about that. I must get that, definitely.
Yeah, we had a blast with that, and he's fairly local. He lives in South Carolina, about 45 minutes to an hour away, so we've been able to hang out in person. Great guy. And then also I have to mention there was also another collaboration was Scapegoat with Adam Howe, and he's over there on your side of the pond.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. So, I was going to ask about sort of what your process is with collabs anyway, but especially then with Adam, did you say?
Yep, Adam Howe.
Yeah. I don't know.
It just depends on, a lot of times the collaboration will come with an idea. Somebody will already bring an idea to the table. Like for example, with Dog Days of Summer, it was my idea. I had written a little bit, but didn't really know where to go with it. With Scapegoat, with Adam Howe, it was he pretty much had a full idea from A to C, knew how to get there from A to B to C, just needed someone to write it with him that he thought that I had some... Actually, you know what? You asked me earlier, has anyone ever come to me for advice for certain details? That collaboration did happen because of that. Adam had a story that had a religious aspect to it, Bible verses and stuff like that. And raised as a Southern Baptist, he thought James would be good for this. Not only because I was raised as a Southern Baptist, but also because I love reading and writing about cults and the dangerous side of
Right.
religion, extreme
Yeah.
fundamentalism. So
Yeah.
he did come to me with that and had the idea, and that turned into us collaborating on a book.
Oh,
So yeah, it's usually someone has the seed of an idea, and whomever has the seed of an idea, they sort of bring it to the table, and then we just begin to riff off one another and end up writing it together. And the one that has the idea, I found, usually sort of takes the lead, but
mhm.
it's a very not it's not an outline that's set in stone. It can obviously change because it is a collaboration. With the special and in the scrape, Mark pretty much knew the whole story, just wanted someone to write it with him. So at Mark Steamsland for in the scrape and the special. So it varies depending on how far along the idea is.
That's cool. Yeah. Because I know some people, they do it very much like one chapter, then someone else does another chapter, and then some people like when Tim Meyer and Chad Lutsky did Wormwood, Tim would write a bit and then send it to Chad, and Chad would look it over and change bits and pieces. So there's very much different ways of doing it. But
That's kind of the way I work. Not necessarily chapters,
yeah,
rewriting each other, so it's a true gelling of styles. Yeah,
yeah. I think
you try to work with who's
unless
okay
your
with that.
voices are so similar, that's the only way. Because otherwise, it would be very much like, oh, well, that's James's chapter and that's Mark's chapter kind of thing, and you're constantly, unless you can blend it like that, it's definitely the better way to do it. Okay, so that
Yep.
takes me into the special. Which I loved. I did absolutely. I haven't seen the movie yet, I must admit. I mean, obviously, I watched you and Mark on Final Guys when you talked about it. But I have read it, and I loved it because it inspired me to write something as well. So,
It's
what can you
awesome.
tell me about the idea for that, and then just how did you feel with it becoming a movie?
So yeah, we like to joke around. I always say this in interviews that that was all Mark. He is the sick, twisted son of a bitch who came up with that idea. But yeah, so and he also likes to tell this story, so I will since he's not here. Mark originally brought the idea to me for a screenplay as well as a novella, and I didn't. I read it and I was like, I don't know that I could really do anything with this. It's not really the kind of thing that I write. It wasn't necessarily the idea itself, as twisted as it was. It was just I didn't really know that I could do much with it. And again, I tell this story because Mark tells it. He would be fine with me telling it. I came back about a month later, maybe not even that long, and told him I can't stop thinking about this. Have you already signed up with someone? Because I've changed my mind. This story won't leave me alone. I do want to do it. And he was like, well, let's do it. So, we co-wrote the screenplay, which was he mostly had done anyway for the most part, filled in some stuff. We wrote the novella together, and then it all came together so very quickly. Sold it. It became a movie, and it's still very, very surreal that
Yeah.
to have our name on a movie. And it's very, very well done. Bruce Harrison Smith, the director, did a wonderful job, and I couldn't be more pleased with it. I'm not even sure is it even available in the UK yet? I'm
It
not
is.
sure.
It's on
Okay.
Prime. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's still, if I'm right, I think it's still even if you have Prime, it's one that you still have to pay for, I think, at
That's
the
right.
moment. But
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, but it is,
Yeah.
yeah, we do have access to it. And a few times I've been like, oh, I could just watch this now, but I just haven't got around to it. But I have
Yeah.
to, especially after hearing what the final guys were saying about it. Because usually if they like a movie, then I know I'm gonna like it anyway. And then when I read it, I was just like, hell yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of
I'm not
fun.
easily, yeah. That's it.
They
I
did
think it's
a
kind
great
of, sorry, yeah.
they did a great
Go on.
little movie out of it.
It's the kind of movie I think as well that I don't know. Will it be? Is it polarizing as well? Possibly. Some people will say, "Oh, that's too much" and whatnot. But I think it's like with a lot of things. I think if you accept that something is just fun and
Yeah,
just go with it, then you're going to enjoy it. And that's
yeah,
part of the reason why one of my favorite subgenres is the splatterpunk stuff, and not an awful lot of stuff offends me really anyway. So some of the
yeah,
stuff that I read is, it's so sexual and so violent and so graphic and gory, but it's so over the top that it's not offensive because it's just funny to me anyway.
yeah.
Maybe that says something about me. That's just
Well,
what I
I
like.
think what works about the special is it works on two different levels. You
Yes.
can watch it or read, if we're talking about the book, as
Yeah.
this 80s style gross out sexual horror piece in the style of
Yep.
Richard Lakeman, or you can look
Yep.
at it as it's got a deeper subtext to it about addiction and how it can
Very
change
much so.
people.
Yes,
Yep.
very much so. Yeah, I'm the simple one that just laughs at it, but you can have people that see it at the higher level as well. It's actually, for all that I'm laughing about it, it's actually beautifully written as well. And you can say it has got that spiral, that downward spiral of how, his life just falls apart. Try not to give too many spoilers and stuff, and that is quite heartbreaking really. And of course it's an allusion to drugs and alcohol or
Yep.
prostitution or anything like that, any of the vices that can take over your life. So
Yep.
yeah. And the whole time I was reading it, I was trying to work out what it was as well, and I don't think I would have ever have got there, so I just
Yeah. That's
so
probably one
that's
of my favorite things in the movie. I think they perfectly kept when you finally see it in the movie. They it was exactly what I saw in my head in the book. They
yeah.
just nailed it, and I didn't expect that. I expected, frankly, to be disappointed, and I should have had some faith in the effects guys because I know what great work they've done in the past. But they nailed it. It was exactly what I saw in my head and what we tried to describe, on
Yeah.
paper, and
Yeah.
it's just hideous, hideous.
Yeah. Awesome. I definitely have to watch it now. Okay. Right. Your own favorite authors and some of your own favorite books and things like that. Who are some of the people that inspire you, and have they influenced you in any of your work at all?
Oh yeah, so it should probably come as no surprise that if I had to name half a dozen or so influences, they would be Stephen King, especially classic King. Um, Joe R. Lansdale is probably my favorite of all time. In fact, when I was starting out, I wanted to be Lansdale, and I think, that was not necessarily a good thing. A lot of new writers starting out, they try to ape their favorites, and it's all about developing your own voice and your own style and trying to be the the you instead of the next whomever.
Yeah.
Um, but Stephen King, Joe R. Lansdale, Bentley Little is a huge influence. Um, I like a lot of Richard Matheson stuff, Tom Monteleone. Um, Ray Garton was a great
Yeah.
influence and also a good friend, which is very surreal, that to have a friendship with folks I grew up reading. He actually wrote a foreword to the limited edition of Animosity a few years back, and it was just amazing. Ed Gorman for thrillers and suspense. And one of my favorite short story writers is Nancy Collins. Um, Her short work is just it's got a very southern sensibility to it, so it's always spoken to me. So
Yeah.
those are my influences.
Okay. Yeah.
F. Paul Wilson is another. Yep.
What about some of the more I'll say modern indie authors coming through? Because I would have said most of those guys are kind of like more of your classic
Yeah.
writers,
It's a good question.
what about some of the newer ones, like other Silver Shamrocks and people like that you're enjoying?
Okay, that's a good one. Mark Allen Gunnels, buddy of mine, that
Yeah.
I mentioned I had written with. And I'm
Yeah.
terrible at stuff like this because you're so terrified that you're going to leave someone out.
Oh.
Summer Kanan. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of her name. Kinsey Jennings. Um,
Yay! I love Kinsey.
let's see. Yeah. Who else? Chad Lutsky, who you know.
Yeah.
Um, who else? Like I said, I'm terrible at this. You put me on the
Oh, I
spot.
know. I am as well.
Uh,
Sorry. I was
no, no.
wondering about Todd Kiesling because of Devil's Creek, as you said about the cults and the religion and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely loved that. Just finished. As a matter of fact, I just finished Scanlines yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I've not read that yet, but I know
yeah.
it's meant to be very, very good.
So creepy. He's a hell of a writer. Hell of a
Oh,
writer.
yes.
Um, who else? Let's see. Um, Christopher Triana lately. Not sure if I'm pronouncing his
Yes,
last name right. I
yes.
just finished Brutal, and I'm reading his collection, Blood Relations, right now. He's great.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
he's on the extreme horror side of things, so you would probably like his
Yes.
work a lot.
Yes.
Although he has written stuff that's not. He wrote a great book called Shepherd of the Black Sheep, which was a thriller. It wasn't really extreme horror.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So those are a handful of folks that I like a lot.
Awesome. And pleased to see that there were some nice ladies represented in there as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Especially Kenzie. Kenzie's lovely. She's a good friend of mine, and hopefully she's down in Florida, and we're heading it back over to Florida in December. Fingers crossed, if you know, if the world allows us to travel again, and I'm hopefully going to meet up with Kenzie for a drink. So it'll be really nice to, because obviously being over in the UK, nearly like 99% of all like my sort of friends that I've made within the horror community are all in the US.
Yeah.
For goodness sake.
Yeah. There's nothing cooler than being able to meet people that you otherwise would never know other than online. Like not only through writer conventions, but also my day job. I got a new position 2 years ago that allows me to travel a lot. And
Right.
if I'm in a certain city, I will look up who lives nearby. Like I narrowly missed being able to meet up with Chad when I went to
Oh.
Michigan. Yeah, we weren't able to make that happen. But I have met in Michigan. I was able to meet my now publisher, Ken McKinley. We've hung out.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a nut. He played a prank on my wife. He'll love this that I shared this. We went out for drinks and dinner when I met him in Lansing, Michigan, a few years ago, and I called my wife to check in because I hadn't talked to her, let her know that I had arrived, and I was safe. And Ken gets the call and proceeds to pretend that he's from the Lansing Police Department, that I'd been pulled over for drunk driving. And Glenda, my wife, is not very gullible, but I do think he had her going for about 30 seconds. Because she was like, what if he went out with a bunch of buddies and then got behind the wheel of a car? She knows me better than that, but
Yep.
Ken is he's pretty convincing. He didn't have to keep a straight face because it's over the phone. And yeah, that was funny. So I got to hang out with him. I've met a buddy of mine, John Collins, big upcoming writer, starting to write some stuff, and fan friend of mine. Met him in Long Island, New York. So every time I go somewhere, I make an effort to, okay, who lives in this area, and could it be possible to meet them? Because otherwise, it would only be online. I've met some fans. It's fun, a lot of fun.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So I hope you get. I really do hope to hook up with Kinsey.
Yeah, it would be awesome. I'd love to be able to do something like Scares That Care as well. Some of the conventions that you have over there. I just have to live vicariously through everybody else on like Facebook.
Yeah.
Stuff. But amazing kind of things. One day maybe. Okay, is there anything that you have coming up apart from obviously Ride or Die that you can tell us about? Any future things in the works that you're able to tell us about?
Well, Ken is releasing another one of his anthologies, Midnight from Beyond the Stars, the
Yes.
follow-up to, his other Midnight books, Midnight Pentagram, Midnight Graveyard. So I have a story in that called Fear of Fallen Leaves. It's a weird story about an alien invasion. And other than that, just working on a couple of short stories here and there, trying to get going on a new novel. No announcements really other than that coming up in, I believe, release dates either August or September, so that's coming up quick. A lot of good writers in that one. Otherwise, just trying to get back into a novel and working on some stuff here and there, but no announcements other than that anthology sale.
Do you still actively sub to open calls and things, or do you tend to focus more just like on your own work, and then like if you get invites to things and whatnot?
Yeah, invites come quite a bit. Just depends on if I think I can do something, if I can come up with an idea for that particular anthology. Or what's on my plate. I do tend to do open calls a lot. I've got a couple of things out there that I'm waiting to hear back. But it just depends. I try not to dwell on coming up with an idea and writing for something that's not a guarantee. Not that an invite is a guarantee, but you feel like the door is open more than if it wasn't an invite. So if I see an open call and I don't have an idea right away or within a few days, I usually won't try to push it too hard, because I should be focusing on my own stuff. Like I really wanted to come up with something for that Monsters Unleashed anthology, and I had the seed of an idea. Yeah, so I had the seed of an idea and really wanted to come up with something for a Renfield story. And I just it never would really start sprouting, so to speak. It was just a seed, and now I looked yesterday, and the deadline is long past. So I try not to spend on something that I don't know I'm going to be able to do, because my own stuff need to focus on that. And I'm not the most prolific writer in the world by any means, so I need to focus on where I need to be focusing.
Of course, yeah, that makes sense. The way that I kind of do it at the moment is if I write something for an open call and then it doesn't get accepted, I'm starting to build up enough for a second collection. So kind of for myself, it's like nothing's wasted. If something doesn't make it for whatever reason, and the editor says, I absolutely loved it, but it just wasn't right for this, I'm like, that's absolutely fine. That's another story for myself, for my own collection.
Yep.
And that's quite a good way. It means you don't get too disappointed then as well, kind of with that. I mean, every time you get rejected for something, it's a little bit like, oh, okay, and that self-doubt always creeps in, but it's not so bad when you've got a home waiting for it, kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
My worst thing is I'm just terrible at missing them. I need to start like writing them down, I think, because I'll be like, oh man, that open call looks amazing, and then I just promptly, totally and utterly forget about it, and then I'll remember like 3 months later, and it's the date's long past, and I'll see the TOC and it's full of people I would love to have worked with, and I'm like, oh, for goodness sake.
Yeah, definitely. And your own collection, as well as there, if you sit on it and you're patient, there could be another anthology pop up, another open call that it would work for. That's not always possible if you're writing something that's for a very specific theme, but it happens. Like I sat on one that wasn't right for one anthology, and then another came along and it was perfect for that one. So I'm waiting to hear back on that one. I was able to recycle it, so to speak.
Awesome. Okay, well, just about wrapping up with the questions that we had then. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about before we finish, or have we covered everything? I keep saying we as if Ben's here with me, but just so used to it. Is there, have I managed to cover everything that you'd wanted to with Ride or Die?
Yeah, I just hope everybody picks up a copy of Ride or Die. I'm pretty proud of it. It was one of those, it's cliche for a writer to say, what's your best work? Oh, well, it's my latest. Of course you're going to say that. Just like a band will say our latest album is our best, I won't even go so far as to say that. I like to think it is. It was definitely one of the funnest things I've ever written. I'd like to think that shows and the reader will have fun with it too. It starts off kind of lighthearted, with teen girls, and I think it even starts off a little bit comedic, a little bit funny with the way they're talking, and then it turns dark very fast. It's other than Odd Man Out, it's probably the darkest thing I've ever written. It gets very twisted very quickly. I think you're gonna dig it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that Odd Man Out absolutely broke me. So
it was a hard one to write. Yeah. It was a hard one to write because I throughout the whole thing I struggled with, is this being exploitive? Is it, because it's so bleak. There's no happy ending to this. This is so wrong. But I felt like I don't want to sound too pretentious, but I felt like it needed to be written, and I needed to just soldier on and get through it because stuff like that happens. And, if it was hard for me to write, it was going to be hard for people to read, and it was going to affect readers. And, reached out to a couple of LGBT friends and fellow writers and said, before I put this out in the world, would you mind giving me your thoughts on it? Is it too much? Is it speaking for you in a way that seems exploitive? And 100% of the time I got, no, you need to publish this right away. So that felt good. That was a confirmation that it was good stuff and it was necessary.
Yeah. It's one of those stories where I almost feel that it should be required reading in high school kind of thing, and they'll never do it because it would scar too many of the kids, but because of the message that is in it. And I told you after I'd read it before, I just literally sat in my lounge and I just cried for about half an hour. It just absolutely broke my heart. But I was glad that I'd read it, and I would recommend it to anybody and everybody, because it will, if it doesn't hurt you, then you must be dead inside.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And it was beautifully written as well. And I would say that definitely, there would have been that kind of struggle of, should I be, is this my story to tell kind of thing? But like you said, you spoke to people like sensitivity readers, and I don't think there's anything in it where people would say, oh, you just wrote that because of such and such. It is a horrific story that, like you say, still goes on now, so people should know about it. If it makes one person think about their actions and things, or if it helps one young gay person, then you've done a really good job. And it was just as a story, it was beautiful anyway. So
thank you so much.
That's all right. Hopefully, that, because obviously it's in Screen Magazine, and hopefully that one will be finding its way out to the States soon. I know that you guys, because I did a review for Slash from Hunter Shea, and it took about it was like he finally got it in Barnes and Noble about 3 months after it came out here. So I know there's a bit of a difference, but hopefully people will, after they read the review, hopefully more people will go out and pick it up as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We definitely get it. We have Scream at our local Barnes and Noble. It is a little delayed, so I will see it eventually and pick it up. Yeah.
Good. Excellent. That's what I'm able to do for my fellow writers with things like that. So It's a privilege for me to be able to read stuff and then put it in something as amazing as Screen Magazine, because so many other people will read it then. So that's what I try as much as I can to to showcase other indie writers, and give you guys all that extra exposure.
Yep. Thank you so much.
That's okay. Right, just before we wrap up then, James, where can people find you? Where can people interact with you and buy your books and things like that?
So I have a website, but I don't even promote it anymore because I never update it. So I just tell people, you know what? Look for me on Facebook. I'm very active on Facebook. Always on Facebook. Too much, in fact, when I should be writing. So hit me up on Facebook, and I will always get back to you. I love interacting with readers. And you can find my stuff on Amazon or straight from the publishers, and I'm on Twitter. And like I said, I love interacting with readers. So just hit me up on social media, and I'll be there for sure.
Awesome. And I'll make sure that I put the links in the show notes to make it sound professional as well, so awesome. That people can just they can find you and your Amazon page and that kind of stuff from there. Okay, well, thank you ever so much for taking time to talk with me today. I'll try and get this up in the next few days, and I will make sure that I share it with you as well.
All right, thank you so much for all that you do.
That's all right. Thank you. Take care, James. Now, bye.
Bye.